Have you ever had that feeling of violation when someone steals your bicycle or robs you of your possessions? It hurts, right? Well, that's small-time stuff for some criminals. Today's video topic might sound like something straight out of a thriller movie, but is very real and increasingly relevant. Identity and home title theft is something that you may not think about much, but when you hear what happened to these victims, you'll definitely want to protect yourself. Coming up, we'll discuss the best precautionary actions so that you can avoid losing everything. This is Real Estate Rundown. Here we go. You worked hard to secure your dream home, then one day you find out someone else claims they own it, or you wake up to debts that you never incurred because someone stole your identity. Scary, right? Well, we're going to break it down for you and explain why it's crucial to shield your personal information and property. Then, later in the video, we'll provide you with actionable tips to safeguard your assets against these invasive crimes. So if you value your hard-earned property and personal security, then this is the information you can't afford to miss. In recent years, the rise of real estate fraud has become a significant concern, exposing a variety of methods by which criminals exploit the trust and property of unsuspecting individuals.
Now, just take a second to think about how much paperwork it takes to purchase a home. We're talking about hundreds of pages. Now, this fraudster tells me all he needs is a couple of sheets of documents, and he can be making thousands off your home while you're living in it without you ever knowing.
Two particularly disturbing cases illustrate the severe impacts of such frauds. The operation led by Manuel Santiago in Florida, and the grim exploits of Joanne Herrling in California. Their stories not only showcase the cunning and depravity involved in such crimes, but also underscore the urgent need for property owners to adopt stringent security measures to protect their most valuable assets. First, we want to tell you about Manuel Santiago, a 43-year-old man from Sarasota, Florida, and his gang of lowlifes that were recently convicted and sentenced for conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. He orchestrated a vast real estate fraud scheme that exploited the chaos and displacement caused by the COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020. With the help of his accomplice, Ross and Dwayne Hamilton, 40, Santiago targeted vacant homes in places like Virginia, Florida, North Carolina, and beyond. Their method involved identifying properties that appeared unoccupied, some due to the owners being away during lockdowns or because they were second homes not being visited. Santiago and Hamilton's strategy was insidious. They didn't just move into these properties like your run-of-the-mill squatters. They would forge ownership documents to claim these properties as their own and then prepared them for sale to third parties. The scheme involved creating fake identities or stealing the identities of real homeowners, which were then used to facilitate the fraudulent transfer of property titles. To lend credibility to their transactions, Santiago enlisted associates like Vernon Lavoie, 59, who impersonated property owners in front of notaries. These fraudulent sales transferred hundreds of thousands of dollars into bank accounts controlled by Santiago and his cohorts. During this conspiracy, Santiago and his co-conspirators attempted to fraudulently sell at least 10 properties and stole the identities of at least 10 people to do so. They were able to successfully nab over $580,000, and there were other attempts to secure an additional $768,000. The consequences for the true owners were devastating. Beyond the financial losses, the emotional and psychological toll was significant for the people affected by these actions. Victims endured the horror of losing their homes and the challenge of reclaiming their property rights. Sometimes they only discovered the fraud when financial anomalies arose or when they attempted to sell their property. Although most of the fraudulent purchases were reversed, there was one case where the third-party purchaser refused to give the home back to the rightful owner, despite acknowledging the fraudulent nature of the sale. In another case, the rightful owner lost his irreplaceable military memorabilia and other personal belongings as a result of the fraudulent sale of his home. The part that will probably piss you off the most is that Santiago was only sentenced to 3 years, while Lavoie got 2 years and 7 months. And Hamilton pled guilty and got sentenced to just 1 day in prison. Can you believe that? It'll take the victims much longer than that to recoup. What are the odds that these guys will be back at it in no time? Coming up, we're going to get into some of the actions that you can take to protect yourself from crooks like this. Before we get to that though, we have to tell you about a seriously intense case of identity and home title theft that happened out on the West Coast. A California woman named Joanne Herrling, who often went by the stage name of Carrie Phoenix, engaged in a much darker and more grisly scheme that exemplifies the extreme nature to which these things can evolve.
She needs to be behind bars.
According to court documents, Herrling and her co-conspirators cased neighborhoods looking for unkept homes with vulnerable victims.
Herrling, age 44, and her co-conspirators began their crime spree by looking for individuals who lived in affluent neighborhoods and had unkempt properties with algae-filled swimming pools or overgrown shrubs. The strategy led them to target the home of an elderly man, Charles Wilding, who lived alone in Sherman Oaks, California. Following his mysterious death around September 2020, which went unreported, Herrling seized an opportunity to capitalize on the situation. The U.S. Attorney's Office said that although they are uncertain how Wilding died, it is believed that Herrling and others took over the property while his body decomposed in his home. Rather than alerting authorities to his death, Herrling allowed Wilding's body to decompose in his home while she and her associates looted his assets. Using forged power of attorney documents, Herrling illegally transferred Wilding's home and other assets into her name.
But in 2021, according to the criminal complaint, detectives were tipped off by an anonymous caller reporting that Wilding was missing, and unidentified individuals are utilizing his identity for financial gain.
Going on an anonymous tip, authorities made contact, and when originally questioned, Herrling identified herself to police as a close friend of Wilding and his family. She was also listed as the trustee of the victim's family trust, which purportedly had been created by the victim's mother, who died in June 2017, but in fact was a forgery. Initially, when contacted by police, she told them that Wilding was not home and was staying with friends in the city of Carpinteria, while she was working to get the house back in order, as it was in disarray and contained black mold. Now, the heat was on, but before police were able to execute a search warrant though, Herrling and her co-conspirators acted to execute an elaborate scheme to ensure his body was never found and that his death would remain unreported. She was desperate to perpetuate her lie that the victim agreed to distribute his assets to her and the co-conspirators. This is when the gruesome nature of her crime escalated to the next level. Herrling and her crew moved the victim's body to an apartment in West Los Angeles and attempted to dissolve it in a concoction of chemicals. When that didn't go as planned, they ultimately dismembered the body and placed it in vacuum-sealed bags, then drove north to dispose of his remains in the San Francisco Bay, effectively erasing any trace of her actions. Wilding's remains have never been found. It doesn't stop there though. These fraudsters also targeted another victim, Robert Tascon, and managed to sell his home without his consent by using a conspirator with fake identity documents to pose as the victim. Herrling set up accounts to receive the proceeds of the sale of this victim's real estate, a transaction that generated approximately $1.5 million. According to court documents, Tascon, who was already suffering from mental health issues, took his own life after losing his home. Herrling reportedly used her ill-gotten gains to purchase a residence in West Hills. Eventually, though, their scam crashed and burned. Accomplice Matthew Jason Croth, age 50, of Tarzana, California, ended up pleading guilty to wire fraud and meth trafficking. Shocking, huh? That drugs were also involved. He was sentenced to 20 years and 40 years respectively for the crimes. As for Caroline Herrling, she was convicted on several charges and sentenced to 20 years and ordered to pay $3.8 million in restitution for her role in these tragic events. These cases bring to light a specific type of real estate fraud known as title theft. Title theft occurs when someone illegally alters ownership records to show that they own a property they have not legally purchased. This can lead to dire consequences for the rightful owners, including the loss of their property and financial liabilities incurred by the fraudsters in their name. Victims often struggle with lengthy legal processes to regain their property and their good name, during which time the emotional and financial strains can be overwhelming. The harrowing experiences of the victims of Santiago and Herrling emphasize the need for thorough protective measures against real estate fraud. Property owners should consider the following strategies to safeguard their investments. First, regular property monitoring. Property owners should regularly check their property records with local authorities to ensure there are no unauthorized changes. Many jurisdictions offer services that notify property owners of any changes made to their property records. Secondly, fraud alerts and credit monitoring. Setting up fraud alerts and subscribing to credit monitoring services can help detect unauthorized activities involving one's identity. These services can provide early warnings of potential fraud, allowing for quicker responses. It's good to perform due diligence on prospective vendors to ensure that you are getting a service that meets your needs. Next, comprehensive title insurance. While standard homeowners insurance covers physical damage to a property, title insurance protects against disputes over the title that may arise from fraudulent transactions. Most folks pay for and get a standard title insurance policy when closing on the purchase of a home. Check your purchase or subsequent refinance closing document package to ensure that you have this in place. Investing in a solid title insurance policy provides a critical safety net. Finally, enhance personal information security. In an age where personal information is frequently exposed online, it is vital to secure personal data. Use strong, unique passwords for online accounts and two-factor authentication, 2FA, whenever possible. Secure your personal documents offline if you can, and be wary of email and text phishing attempts. These are all crucial steps to help keep you protected against these heinous crimes. The distressing stories of Santiago in Florida and Herrling in California highlight the sophisticated and varied methods fraudsters use to exploit the real estate market. For homeowners and potential property buyers, awareness and proactive engagement in protective measures are essential. Understanding the risks and implementing a combination of monitoring, insurance, and personal data security can significantly reduce the chances of falling victim to such devastating schemes. In safeguarding one's property rights, vigilance is not just beneficial. It is necessary to navigate the complexities of modern real estate ownership. Be sure to leave us a comment below and let us know what preventative actions you're taking to avoid becoming the next victim to bad actors like these. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Please like and subscribe to help us out. This is Real Estate Rundown. Stay safe out there.